Welcome to US Briefing. The content of the briefing includes TikTok's e-commerce ambitions dealt blow as Indonesia adds curbs. Mitsubishi Motors will stop making cars in China, Nikkei reports. Iraq fire that killed 100 at wedding started during couples dance. Unknown unknowns unnerving markets for Q4. Solomon Islands joins China-backed AIIB days after PM snubs Biden invite. TikTok's e-commerce ambitions dealt blow as Indonesia adds curbs. Bloomberg. Indonesia has introduced regulations that will restrict TikTok's online shopping operations in the country. The regulations prohibit social commerce companies from facilitating direct e-commerce payments on their platforms, meaning TikTok will need to separate its shopping feature from its video scrolling service. This is part of new trade regulations aimed at protecting local e-commerce services and small businesses. Indonesia is TikTok's biggest e-commerce market and the first country in Southeast Asia to push back against the social media platform. TikTok has argued against the policy, stating that it hampers innovation and disadvantages Indonesian merchants and consumers. Mitsubishi Motors will stop making cars in China, Nikkei reports. Bloomberg. Mitsubishi Motors is reportedly ending production in China, following years of poor sales. The Japanese carmaker is in discussions with its Chinese venture partner Guangzhou Automobile Group to cease manufacturing, according to reports. Mitsubishi Motors suspended its business in China indefinitely in July, citing falling sales and a market shift towards electric vehicles. Other Japanese carmakers, including Honda and Nissan, have also struggled in the Chinese market, losing market share to competitors such as Tesla and BYD. Mitsubishi Motors CEO announced earlier this year that the company needed to reassess its strategy in China. Iraq fire that killed 100 at wedding started during couples dance. The Independent. A fire at a wedding in Iraq has killed more than 100 people and left more than 150 injured, many with severe burns. Witnesses said the fire began as fireworks were set off during the bride and groom's first dance. The couple were among those killed, although some guests said they had escaped through the kitchen. The wedding hall's exterior contained illegal, highly flammable cladding materials that collapse within minutes, according to civil defense officials. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani has ordered an investigation into the fire. Unknown unknowns unnerving markets for Q4. The Globe and Mail. Stock markets are vulnerable to a sudden downturn due to a combination of factors including the threat of another U.S. government shutdown, a Chinese property bust and geopolitical tensions, according to Reuters. Although implied volatility gauges across stock, bond and currency markets have fallen to their lowest levels in years, the equity and bond markets have demonstrated a positive correlation this week, which has unnerved investors. The article also warns about the concentration of portfolios in a small group of technology stocks and highlights the risk of a recession. Solomon Islands joins China-backed AIIB days after PM snubs Biden invite. South China Morning Post. The Solomon Islands has joined the China-backed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, just days after its leader snubbed an invite to meet U.S. President Joe Biden at the Pacific Leaders Summit. El Salvador and Tanzania have also been admitted as prospective members, bringing the total number of countries in the bank to 109. AIIB President Jean LeCun said the members now collectively account for 81% of the world's population and 65% of global GDP. China holds a 30% stake in the bank, which started operating in 2016 as Asia's answer to the World Bank. The bank has been accused of being infiltrated by the Communist Party. Republican candidates brace for second GOP debate tonight, latest. The Independent. The second Republican presidential debate is scheduled to take place on Wednesday at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California. 7 candidates have qualified for the debate, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former Vice President Mike Pence. Former President Donald Trump has chosen to skip the debate. In order to qualify, candidates needed to gain at least 3% support in national polls and have at least 50,000 unique donors. The debate will be broadcast on Fox Business and Univision, and moderated by Dana Perino and Stuart Varney of Fox News Media and Ilya Calderon of Univision. The Republican candidates for the 2024 presidential election are facing a challenge when it comes to the topic of abortion. The issue has become increasingly complicated since the fall of Roe v. Wade, with polling showing that most Americans believe abortion should be legal in the first trimester but illegal in the third trimester. Candidates are struggling to navigate the Republican Party's pro-life stance while also appealing to a broader audience. Voters are looking for candidates who can take a nuanced approach to the subject. The third Republican presidential debate is set to take place on November 8 in Miami. Candidates will face the most stringent requirements yet to participate, including securing 4% of the vote in multiple polls and 70,000 unique donors. Former President Donald Trump, who skipped the first debate, is expected to skip the third debate as well. The requirements for the second debate included gaining at least 3% support in national polls and having at least 50,000 unique donors. Michael Wolff unpicks the real-life succession drama. The Guardian. Michael Wolff, author of The Fall, The End of the Murdoch Empire, discusses the recent anointing of Lachlan Murdoch as Rupert Murdoch's successor, as well as his personal experiences with the Murdoch family and his views on power, politics, and the media. Wolff reveals that while he had a good relationship with Rupert Murdoch during the writing of his biography, The Man Who Owns the News, the media mogul was difficult to talk to personally and couldn't reflect on his own experiences. Wolff also suggests that his warts and all exposé may have played a role in Murdoch's decision to step aside, as it highlighted the problems of an elderly man running a public company. Wolff's book examines the creation of Fox News and its impact on politics, particularly the rise of Donald Trump. He notes that Murdoch wanted a rolling news channel and created Fox News, but ultimately ended up with a media empire that he disliked. Wolff also delves into the motivations behind the characters at Fox News, suggesting that their primary goal is to stay on television rather than advancing any particular political agenda. Regarding his relationship with Trump, Wolff acknowledges that the former president can sometimes sound like a moron but also possesses keen instincts and a certain level of genius. He also discusses his own motivations as a storyteller and his continued optimism about American democracy despite the challenges it faces. Ohio Supreme Court battle over 6-week abortion ban begins. The Guardian. The Ohio Supreme Court is set to hear arguments on whether the state should be allowed to ban abortion as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy. The ban, which was put on hold for years but went into effect after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, does not have exceptions for rape or incest. If the Ohio Supreme Court reinstates the ban, it could have significant implications for the upcoming vote on whether to enshrine abortion rights in the state's constitution. Ohio is one of the few Midwestern states that still allows abortion, and if its clinics are forced to close, providers in other regions could see an influx of patients. What to watch and who is participating in the second Republican debate. Washington Post. The second GOP debate is set to take place on Wednesday night, with 7 Republican candidates vying for the party's presidential nomination. Notable absentees include frontrunner Donald Trump, who has instead chosen to visit Michigan to speak to auto workers. The debate will be held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California, and will last for 2 hours. It is expected that some of the candidates will use the opportunity to further attack Trump, with his absence providing a chance for his rivals to gain some ground. The debate will be broadcast on Fox and Univision at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Macron and Corsica with autonomy for the island at the top of the agenda. RFI. French President Emmanuel Macron will visit Corsica this week amid demands for greater autonomy from the island's nationalist movement. Macron's visit comes after months of dialogue between Corsican elected representatives and government officials and follows the death of pro-independence militant Ivan Kalana. The nationalists have called for legislative power in all areas except sovereignty, Corsican residency status, co-officialization of the Corsican language, and recognition of Corsican people in the French constitution. Macron has stated that Corsica will remain part of the French Republic and has set red lines against the creation of 2 categories of citizens and the co-officiality of the Corsican language. India weaponizing global anti-terror fund to target civil groups. The Independent. The Indian government has used recommendations from the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, to target civil society groups and human rights work in the country under the guise of combating terrorism, according to a report by Amnesty International. The report accuses the government of exploiting the FATF's recommendations to tighten financial and counter-terrorism laws and silence its critics. Amnesty called for India to be held accountable by the FATF for the weaponization of its recommendations. The report also claims that the Indian government has misused the laws to bring terrorism-related charges and prevent organizations from accessing essential funds. Hattie McDaniel's missing Gone with the Wind Oscar is being replaced. The Independent. Hattie McDaniel, the first black winner of an Academy Award, will have her missing Oscar replaced by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. McDaniel won the award for Best Supporting Actress in 1940 for her role in Gone with the Wind. She left the trophy to Howard University in her will, but it went missing in the late 1960s. The original location of the trophy is unknown, but a replacement will be housed at Howard University's Fine Arts College, named after the late actor Chadwick Boseman. The replacement Oscar will be presented in a ceremony on October 1st. Leader of Spain's Conservatives expected to lose on his first chance to become Prime Minister. Associated Press. Alberto Núñez Feijóo, leader of Spain's Popular Party, is expected to miss out on becoming the country's next prime minister when the parliament votes on his petition to form a government. Feijóo appears likely to fall 4 votes short of the necessary absolute majority of 176 votes in favor. If he loses the vote, acting Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez would have a chance to stay in office. The parliament is highly fragmented, with 350 legislators spread across 11 different parties. If no government is formed by November 27, new elections will be called for January 14. Leader of Spain's Conservatives expected to lose on his first chance to become Prime Minister. The Independent. The leader of Spain's Conservative Popular Party, Alberto Núñez Feijóo, is expected to fall short of the necessary votes to become Prime Minister in a parliamentary vote on Wednesday. Feijóo will have another chance to secure the position on Friday but would still require more yes votes than no. Spain's July election resulted in a fragmented parliament, making it difficult for any party to gain power. If Feijóo fails to secure approval, acting Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez will have an opportunity to stay in power. Tightrope debt situation not unique to Kenya, Finance Minister says. Reuters. Kenya's Finance Minister, Njuguna Ndung'u, has said that Kenya is not unique in struggling with a heavy debt load and pressure on its hard currency reserves, as other nations are facing the same situation. Ndung'u was responding to a research note by J.P. Morgan, which warned that Kenya was walking a tightrope to avoid a crisis due to a maturing dollar bond and persistent currency weakness. Ndung'u stated that the upcoming Eurobond maturity should not be a big deal as Kenya can use its reserves at the central bank to pay off the debt. However, he acknowledged that a more well-mapped set of solutions will be needed to address the persistent negative shocks faced by low and middle-income countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world, bringing you the latest news from around the globe. Let's dive right in. TikTok's e-commerce ambitions in Indonesia have hit a roadblock as the country introduces regulations that will restrict the social media platform's online shopping operations. This move is aimed at protecting local e-commerce services and small businesses. TikTok, however, argues that the policy hampers innovation and disadvantages Indonesian merchants and consumers. It will be interesting to see how TikTok adapts to these new regulations and whether it can continue its dominance in the Indonesian market. In the automotive industry, Mitsubishi Motors is reportedly ending its production in China after years of poor sales. The Japanese carmaker is in discussions with its Chinese venture partner to cease manufacturing. This decision comes as other Japanese carmakers, such as Honda and Nissan, struggle in the Chinese market. It seems that Tesla and other electric vehicle manufacturers are gaining ground in China, posing a challenge to traditional carmakers. Tragedy struck in Iraq as a fire at a wedding killed over 100 people and left many others injured. The fire started during the couple's first dance as fireworks were set off. The wedding hall's exterior contained illegal and highly flammable cladding materials, according to officials. This heartbreaking incident highlights the importance of safety regulations and the need for proper enforcement to prevent such tragedies. Moving on to the financial markets, there are concerns about potential downturns in stock markets due to a combination of factors, including the threat of another U.S. government shutdown, a Chinese property bust, and geopolitical tensions. While volatility gauges have fallen to their lowest levels in years, the positive correlation between equity and bond markets this week has unnerved investors. It's a reminder that markets can be unpredictable, and it's important for investors to stay informed and diversified. In international news, the Solomon Islands has joined the China-backed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, just days after its leader snubbed an invitation to meet U.S. President Joe Biden. With El Salvador and Tanzania also joining, the AIIB now has a total of 109 member countries. China holds a significant stake in the bank, which has been accused of being infiltrated by the Communist Party. This development further highlights China's growing influence in the global financial landscape. Turning to politics, the second Republican presidential debate is set to take place, with 7 candidates vying for the party's nomination. However, former President Donald Trump has chosen to skip the debate, providing an opportunity for his rivals to gain some ground. The topic of abortion is proving to be a challenge for Republican candidates as they navigate the party's pro-life stance while also appealing to a broader audience. It will be interesting to see how candidates handle this issue and whether they can strike a balance. In the world of media and entertainment, Hattie McDaniel, the first Black winner of an Academy Award, will have her missing Oscar replaced by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. McDaniel's original trophy went missing in the late 1960s, but a replacement will now be housed at Howard University. This is a significant recognition of McDaniel's historic achievement and a reminder of the importance of representation in the film industry. Finally, there are political developments in Spain as the leader of the Conservative Popular Party, Alberto Núñez Feijóo, is expected to fall short of the votes needed to become the country's next prime minister. Spain's fragmented parliament has made it challenging for any party to gain power, and if Feijóo fails to secure approval, acting Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez will have a chance to stay in power. These political dynamics highlight the complexities of forming a government in a multi-party system. That's all for today's news roundup. I hope you've enjoyed our journey through the latest happenings around the world. Now, it's time to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any questions? Let's open the floor for discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.